Do you struggle with wondering how the hips should move or whether you're doing the correct movement or not? There's three things I'm going to talk about in this video. One, how you move your hips in the backswing and errors that are commonly associated with that. So one in the backswing, one in the transition, which is critical. So that's the movement that you make between the end of the backswing and the start of the downswing. And the third is in the downswing itself. So let's have a look at those movements. When I swing back, if you swing the club back and your hips slide at all, it's going to put your upper body out of position during the swing. And that can lead to issues then with how your arms move and how the club moves, and then the club's path, particularly through impact. So if we just focus, first of all, just on what the hips are doing in the backswing. As I swing back, my right leg my hips are turning, but my right leg appears not to move sideways at all. Now the movement of the hip is that as it starts to go back, it's moving backwards a little bit, and then my right hip is actually moving backwards and across toward the target a little bit. Now it's not so much that I get this sort of movement going, but it's just enough to keep me stable around that right leg. So there is some movement with the right hip toward the target. So again, if I make that backswing movement to the top of the swing, that right hip has moved back and then across a little bit. If it doesn't move, if you only try and move it backwards, you'll eventually start to slide. And then again, upper body's out of position, which I mentioned at the start. Then here's the critical point. This is where most players will make errors with the hip movement. This is the biggest hip error movement. From the top of the swing, a lot of players will start trying to turn their hips back toward the target. Now, if the right hip starts down moving forward, the balance can move out toward the front of the toes, and the arms and hands are going to move out as well. Now we're in a position, the perfect position, to hit the slice. And of course, there's very few golfers who are happy doing that. The movement with the through the transition is, it feels like the hips have turned in the backswing, then they move forward. So there's no turning as you start down. So as the club goes back, my hips have moved to here. Now it feels like there's no turn. My feeling is that the hips are moving without any turn at all. It doesn't actually happen, but it's a great sensation to have, particularly if you start your downswing with this hip moving forward. So through transition, back to the top, and moving forward. And now I've slid forward so much that my left leg is now vertical. So as I'm swinging down, if my hips turn, my balance is not going to shift, or pressure is not going to shift toward the target, I'm in trouble. Both with how my body's moving, how I'm using my feet, and then what happens with the rest of the swing. So through transition, hips feel like they're sliding toward the target without the right hip coming out at all. So it feels like a slide until my left leg is vertical. And then from there, I'm pretty much using my left leg as a pivot post. And so this is the third issue. When the club swings down, a lot of players will have the left hip going backwards as they're swinging into impact. And for those players, you'll feel like you're in the class of back foot hitters. So you're not actually allowing that pressure to move forward because it hasn't moved forward at the start of the downswing or through the transition period. So from after here, now my balance is forward, left leg's vertical, then I can turn around that left hip as I'm swinging down and through. So having that feel of the hips moving, sliding, and then turning around the left side will take a little bit of practice, particularly if you're hand and arm dominant or you haven't been making that movement very correctly. When you start to make the movement correctly, you'll feel very, very solidly grounded during the swing. So you feel like your balance is good, you're able to create movement and momentum from the ground up through your body, through your arms and the club. So from here, as the club goes back and through, turning, sliding and through. And if we look from the side, as I go back from here, as the swing starts down, My hips are moving forward, so you can clearly see from this view that my hip's not moving this way. Moving forward, balance is on the left side, then turn through. So from here, turning back, hips sliding, turn around that left side. So practice those movements and you'll find that you'll stabilise your movement, you'll get much more work from the ground and from your feet and legs, which is going to help your swing become more stable, and you'll probably be able to get more power into your shots by doing that.